Hi, everyone. This is such an honor for me to be talking with Shelby Van Pelt, the author of one of my most favorite books, Remarkably Bright Creatures. You know that I've been gushing about this book since I finished it, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago. And we're so excited. So hello.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun. I love chatting with readers and answering readers' questions. Is one of my favorite things about this whole process. So I'm very happy to be here.
Well, it's seriously so exciting as a reader to be able to talk with authors. I mean, like before I started Bookstagram, I couldn't even imagine this connection world of authors and readers and commenting on each other's Instagrams and messaging on like it's just like, how could I be so lucky? So I'm really excited to just talk a little bit about the book. And we have some just questions from my Megan's Book Club group that they wanted to hear from you. So first, congrats on New York Times bestseller.
Thank you. Yeah, that has been pretty wild. I mean, that's the call that like every author wants to get when you get the call from your agent and your pub team that says like, hey, the list. And it's so funny because it comes out, it goes to them a little bit early.
Oh, like, okay.
They get it at 5:00, but it's not public until 7:00. So there's this little period where it's like this big secret, kind of you're bubbling over to tell people, but you're not supposed to share it. It's like embargoed until a certain time. But yeah, that was a really, really fun call to get. And you know what? Hey, like I was number 15. Like if I never hit it again, that's fine. Once is enough.
Oh my goodness, what a dream. And to be a debut author, I mean, are you just like, is your head exploding? Like, did you even think that, I mean, it's just the dream to hit it big. I mean, this stamp right here is a big deal. And to be in New York City and talking to Jenna, I mean, just the whole thing, I bet it's been it's a whirlwind. I'm sure you're like, I need a nap.
It honestly, a lot of it just feels like, watching someone else's life on a movie, like, how is this my life? Especially with, coming out of COVID and coming back into doing things in public and seeing people and being social, and then having all of this kind of exploding on top of that.
You're like, wait, should we be this close?
Right, like, wait, aren't we? Wait, are we not wearing sweatpants anymore? Like, when did that stop? Like,
yeah, can't wear sweatpants talking with Hoda and Jenna.
They probably would have been perfectly nice if I had showed up there in sweatpants. They are both just some of the nicest people.
Yeah.
So like warm.
So fun.
It was fun.
So first let's talk about, where did this story come from? I mean, the biggest question, and I mean, we can just kind of go into it as it develops, but why an octopus? There was one of my followers said, were you worried that the octopus would come off as like a weird character, like that it would be received well? Because I mean, how many books do you read about an octopus,
Well, I mean, for sure he is a weird character. I don't think there's any question about that. But I hope it's weird in a good way.
Oh yes,
it's funny.
Yeah, I can like see it already on screen. I'm ready for the movie.
Well, fingers crossed, we'll see. It's when I submitted to agents when I had the manuscript done, and I did what's called cold querying, which is kind of the like old-fashioned way of querying, when you just write a query letter and send it. It's all through electronic platform these days, but send it off to these agents who say they're open for submission and hope for the best. And and I signed with Kristen Nelson, my amazing agent. After I had signed with her, she's like, my assistant, when this came in, she has someone who kind of screens them for her, so she doesn't have to do that herself, wrote in the margin of the query letter, "This is either brilliant or bananas." And like, so a lot of people, it is kind of bananas, especially in in literary fiction, in kind of this book club upmarket fiction, to have a fantasy character or something that's just weird, like an octopus narrator. And there are definitely times when I was writing it that I was like, should I just do something more traditional for a first book? Like, am I going to be kind of ignored or, or laughed at or not taken seriously? But it's a chance you got to take, I guess.
Yeah, take the risk. You took it and it paid off big time. I think because I did the audiobook, and what caught me, I had no idea there would be a voice for the octopus. And
Yeah.
I was like, could there be a more perfect voice?
Oh, he
So
was
my
so perfect,
question
Michael
is,
Urie.
he is amazing. Did you have any say in the narration?
Yeah, a little bit. When it came time to do the audiobook, they sent me a list of a few people that they had in mind, and then some sample clips of other work that they had done, and basically just asked me to kind of rank it, like, who's your top choice, second, third, and then we'll just see who we can get. And I got so incredibly lucky. Michael Urie and Maren Island were my top two in each of those.
Yes.
We knew we were going to have a first person narrator for Marcellus and then a third person narrator for the rest of the book. And those were my top two choices in both of those lists. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think Maren, she is one of my favorite audiobook narrators. And it's just the whole voice acting thing is just so amazing to me, that they can make these books just come to life. Like we're in the middle of selling our house, and I was telling my followers on my stories about your book, and I'm like, stressed and moving and cleaning. And I was like, I could not even believe I was literally scrubbing my cabinets, crying, listening to the story. And then as I'm telling them on my stories, I started getting choked up, and I was like, not telling about the ending, but, I'm just like, you get the way that they can narrate the story, just like hits you in a different way. It's amazing.
Yeah. And, I'm not really a huge audiobook person. But I would listen to this audiobook or anything with them. I mean, they just,
for sure.
Like, Marin's voice just draws you in, and it's like, you forget that you're listening to writing. You're just listening to a story. Like, it's, yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. So what made you decide to set it kind of I know you said it's a fictional town, but kind of in the Pacific Northwest of, that scene?
Well, I grew up in Tacoma, Washington, which is a much larger town than the fictional Sowell Bay. Tacoma is kind of a like junior Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew I wanted it to be a small town because I really liked the kind of gossipy thing. And I think most of it was really, I miss home. Like, that will always be my home. I live in the Midwest now. I've lived all over, from California, Boston, New York, Atlanta. And then we moved here to the Chicago suburbs maybe about 4 years ago. My husband's family is from here. So, I feel like I have lots of different homes, but only like one place that is really home in my heart, and that would be Washington State. Mm-hmm. So, it was really just going home for me in a way. And particularly when I did a lot of the drafting of this was during early COVID, and I couldn't go home. Everything was locked down. I think we were actually supposed to take my kids home for their spring break to see my extended family, and we were going to spend a week in Tacoma
before.
And then, and they still haven't been back. We're going to go next month. Now this month, I guess. So yeah,
that'll be great.
I missed it a lot. And I think, this was just an important kind of coping mechanism for me to be able to lose myself in this story and the setting and kind of be able to visit home that way.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting just of you saying that it was really only a couple of years ago that you started writing this book. I have talked to a few debut authors, and they're like, yeah, I've been writing this for 15 years. It finally has come to the front center stage. And so to hear that this is a relatively new venture for you.
Well, that's true. And
before. Yeah.
It's true and isn't true. So I think I started the book in like 2014.
Okay. So it's like the brain of it.
Right. The brain of it, the Marcella, I came up with this Marcellus character, this octopus, but then, I did, I think what a lot of people who kind of want to be writers do. And I would write like the first chapter over and over again, write like the first 2 chapters, and then be like, no, that's not right. I need to like go back and tinker with it. And just, never really wrote an actual book. I just kept, I would write scenes, and I would, I guess, like in hindsight,
you had the story. Probably.
I didn't really.
You didn't? Does it just like, do you plot like as you go? Like,
I
do you
plot
just
as I
let it
go.
go? Okay.
Well, and I didn't know what I was doing when I started out. So I was just like, in hindsight, it was all like valuable work. It was like character sketches. I would write like scenes and characters, but I didn't really have much of a plot. And it was probably about like 2019. I was just like, okay, I'm going to figure this out and write this book. This has been sitting on my computer for so many years. And, I read a couple of craft books, like, how to write a novel. Still didn't really understand how to write a novel, but figured it out as I went along. I'm not really a plotter as much as just
That's so fascinating, because one of my questions was, did you know just how the ending would develop? That's because some people are like, they talk about their characters of like these, life of their own. And they're like, I had no idea she was going to do that. And as a reader, I'm like, you didn't know, like you're writing the book, but some just kind of let things just go. And so I'm interested. So you just kind of, as things kind of progress, that's so
I mostly let them go. Yeah. And it's not the most efficient way to write a book. Like I have writer friends who do more of like the outline, the outline, or like the sticky notes. I can do some sticky notes. I think I like that I can move sticky notes around.
Yeah.
Because I do a lot of moving around, and I did that with this book, like a lot.
Well, it seems like there were so many moving parts of like these flashbacks and just, different character, Cameron's story and Tova, and then Marcellus, and even just there were little bits and pieces. So then when it all kind of came together at the end, I was just like, I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think I know, but how is she going to do it? It was great.
Yeah. The timelines it was a nightmare in editing. My poor editor, because how Marcellus does his day, whatever of his captivity.
Yeah.
And we kept moving things around, and then like the days would be off, and, she would just like go through my draft and be like, your timeline is still off. Like you said, it was 2 weeks over here, but it's like day, whatever over here.
Oh,
like,
no.
And then it'd be like, oh, but what if we moved this here? And then the whole thing gets thrown off again. It's really like
that's hard.
That kind of detail is just not like my strength as a person or as a writer.
Like, you're the editor, just move it for me.
I know, can you just fix it? I'm never going to get it right.
Fix the date. It's going to be fine. Yeah, that's so interesting.
But, and she was right. She's like, you know what? Like, if this is off, like readers will notice it, and it'll bother them. And it would bother me as a reader too. So I get it. But it was just like, at some point we just have to stop moving these parts around and like make it as it is.
Yes. So do you think there was a character that either you like related to, or was it inspired by? Was there anyone that you were like, oh, this is a part of me, or a part of anything?
Yeah, definitely. The Tova character, the 70-year-old woman who is the janitor, basically, she was a lot inspired by my grandmother, who passed away a few years ago. Was this tiny little Swedish lady, super, super nice, but just like super stoic and kind of, very sweet and like freely giving of her love, but not necessarily of herself or her emotions. She was like a smoother over. Everything was just fine. I'm just keeping busy over here, doing the ironing. It's like, why are you ironing the pillowcases, Grandma, for the guest bed? Like, sit down and relax.
Yeah.
She'd sit down with her cup of coffee, and then she would start crocheting. Like she just
couldn't sit still.
Not sit still. So that's definitely where I plucked that character from. And I plucked some elements of her actual life. Like she had a group called the Nitwits that were her friends. And
I
borrowed some of that.
What Was it the
aimlessly do.
horses? Was it the horses? she
Dala
collected?
horses, yeah. Actually, I have some of hers.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
this was actually
Oh.
my great grandmother's. Oh, this is my Axel. What you doing, bud? I'm on a work call, bud.
I know, but
I know. Is it an emergency?
no, but Annika didn't.
Sorry.
Annika didn't stop when I said stop.
Okay, you know what? I will be with you in a little bit. Can you watch some TV for a little bit? Stellar parenting right here. I know. I will be with you in a little bit, okay? I'm so sorry.
You're fine. It's either you or it's me. So it's my kid or it can be yours.
And there's basically, this is like a lot of how I got the book written. Can you go watch Netflix?
Right. Yeah. Mommy's working. It's going to pay off, I hope. And yeah.
But yes, we had those around my
horses.
house when I was
That's
growing
so
up.
fun.
So yeah, that was definitely plucked from real life. But I mean, I think on a more like deeper level though, I think one thing that I realized about myself when I was writing the book was like that I'm also a little bit like her in that kind of like I find it difficult to sometimes just share pieces of myself or like be vulnerable and authentic with people. And you know, we've moved around a lot. I think, as I'd mentioned when we were chatting earlier, I've lived all over the US, you know, many moves as an adult. And you know, every time you like move, especially like to a new state, it's like, okay, you've got to make a whole group of friends.
Oh yeah.
And like, I'm not very good at that. Like, and I think I realized
it's hard as an adult.
It is
it's hard.
And especially when you kind of, you know, have like a little bit of this like stoic Swede in me where, you know, it's hard to kind of be like my real self. And so I think I realized that about myself when I was writing it, which was kind of cool. You know, it was like, oh, you know, I didn't realize that this thing that I'm
like,
you know,
reverse therapy.
Yeah, like I'm writing this character and I'm
Yeah.
almost not that I'm like judging her, but like I kind of am like, oh, she's just, you know, she really just needs to learn how to like crack herself open and blah blah blah, and you know, this is the lesson that she needs to learn in this arc of the story. But then realizing that like, okay, I need to learn that lesson a little bit too. And then you know, Cameron, the younger man who's in the story,
I loved his character.
he was
so
a
fun.
lot of fun to write. He's such a loser.
It's just so, he added like a lightness, and I loved the ending when he like swore, he like said some curse word and she was like, this is my life now, you know, like she's like this is just and I think he said something about her crossword puzzle that she was doing or so, and some like word came to her mind from whatever he said. And it was just so cute. Just like this, he just added that kind of younger, kind of just playful, crazy, just it was a good balance.
Yeah, he was fun to write. And I think we all know a Cameron, like someone like that who just, they are incredibly capable and smart.
Can't make the choices.
Cannot get it together. And you just want to like, oh, just do it, man. Like, you
just
know,
make a decision. Jeez. And then he like ups and leaves. Oh, that I was like, oh my goodness. And his phone died or something. It was like, and all of this stuff was happening. And Tova's having these like, you know, realizations of just everything. I won't spoil it, but that part in the book, I was just like, I'm stressed. Like, I know just because I know that this was going to end happy. Like, it didn't feel like a book that would just like cut you at the end,
and
you know.
Then they all went back to their horrible lives.
Never to be seen again. I knew that it was going to like end on a high. So I'm like, I know he's going to come back and I know it's all going to work out. But like in that moment, I was just like, ooh.
Yeah.
Stress.
Well, and I think it's just so true to that character in particular with that kind of story arc where it's not like a really dramatic arc necessarily. It's just, you need to stop screwing up. So like gradually, little by little, you screw up less. And then of course, what is that person going to do before they finally learn the lesson? They're going to just throw it all away and go back to being, you know, the world's biggest loser.
Well, and he was 30, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was, I mean, I don't know if you did it. This would be like a book club, like, let's talk about him being 30. But I think a lot of times people kind of frame it as like, you better have it together when you're 30. Like, that's kind of your expectation. Like, if you don't own your house or you're a professional or you have a trade that you're like successful, think there's a lot of pressure to kind of fit that mold when you're that age. So I just kind of, you kind of feel for him that he's like been seeking maybe for all of these things. And it's just, I mean, his poor life growing up, his mother and just, just trying to find his dad and that little bit of a storyline. It just, you feel for him. You want him to win. You want him, to have these wins in his life.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think 30 is, that's like when you're not a kid anymore, right? I'm in my 40s now, but I remember being 30 and, I was not really like Cameron, but I, at that point in my life had, I'd started a career out of college. I had left that career, we had moved around a bunch. Like I wasn't really doing anything that I thought I would be doing at 30, between jobs, like it was hard, to face that. I didn't have kids yet, so I didn't have that like excuse to be, I was just not really doing much. So
yeah,
I definitely think 30 is the perfect age for him to be in this book, to be having this crisis.
Yeah, I liked that. So what was the hardest part to write? Like, I know we talked about just kind of, you're not so much a plotter in the story. When was it like, this is grinding it out? Like, when were you like, it's not coming together, or there was a part that just kind of maybe stuck a little bit?
Yeah, I think the middles are always tough. And I think a lot of writers will say that. I think sometimes it's called the murky middle.
Yeah.
You start off strong, you get your chapter, your first chapters, you're set up, you're introducing your characters, you're getting to know them. It's like fun, kind of like the first stage of a relationship or something. It's all fun and games. And then you get to this middle section and you have to keep increasing the tension. Otherwise the story will kind of sag. At the same time, I feel like your impulse is to almost do the opposite, because you're kind of on a little bit of like almost like a hangover from this exhilaration of the setup and getting everything in motion. And then like, keeping it in motion can be a little bit tough. And then for me, once I kind of got into the end, some of like what you were talking about, when the pace kind of starts picking up and all of this stuff is happening at once, that really felt a lot easier. Like it was just like, okay, I can see the finish line. Like I can sit here and kind of bang this out. But, getting the middle right was definitely tough. And I think I wrote a lot of material that I ended up deleting from that middle section, because it was just kind of, it wasn't needed. It was slowing things down. I think the middle definitely was the challenge.
And I think for just readers in general, I feel like the middle is like the make or break 5-star or 4-star. You're like, well, the middle kind of lagged or whatever, but no problems here.
Well, middles often lag. I mean, I think there's definitely a reason.
It's hard. No, I get it. Cause you're like, we have to get to this point to kind of start unraveling, but like I get that's hard.
I definitely get annoyed by it as a reader just as much as anyone else when I'm, you're reading. And it can be really devastating, especially if you're really excited by the beginning of a book and then you get to the middle and you realize that
I know.
it's kind of sad.
Well, speaking of reading, are you who do you like to read? Are you reading anything right now? Like, I'm sure when you're like in the writing process, you're like, put that on pause. But
no, I mean, I think when I was doing a lot of the drafting of this, I was reading Erin Morgenstern's The Starless Sea.
Oh, okay.
Which is a completely different book from mine. And so I think that I can do that,
Yes.
But some of my favorite authors to read, like I love like Kevin Wilson, Frederick Backman, are probably a little bit too similar.
His new one.
Oh, who's Frederick's or Kevin's?
No,
I haven't read Frederick's yet.
Okay, but you've read Beartown.
I've read Beartown and what's the one that came after Beartown?
Us Against You.
Us Against You. Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't read the third one.
It's on my Kindle and it's kind of a beast of a book. I think it's like 700 pages.
Wow.
And I'm like, I'm not ready yet. My brain's like, I need to like, you got to be pumped for a 700-page book.
I will admit,
You got to be ready.
I love everything that he writes, but I
Yes.
like his lighter books a little bit more than the breakdown books. I mean, I can
somebody
appreciate.
related A Man Called Uva to this book.
Yeah, it
They
was
were like, and
when
I
they
loved
pitched it,
Uva
yeah.
so much. And they were like, I think it was on some recommendation, something. They're like, for fans of A Man Called Uva. And I was like, done.
Yeah, that's one of my all-time favorites too.
Yeah.
I love curmudgeons.
But Tova she wasn't totally like crotchety like Uva though. So
no,
like
Marcellus is though.
Yes, that's true. I can see Uva being an octopus. So yes.
Yeah,
that's true.
But yeah, I sometimes will have like 2 or 3 books going at a time. I'll have like my my nightstand book, and then like my purse book.
Yes.
And then I recently, after not having one for years, just got a new Kindle.
Nice.
That actually works. So I'm excited to have. I think that might be the new purse book. I'll just keep
so is my Kindle here? I just have to do one plug for a Kindle. Since you're a busy mom like me, you need to get a pop socket on the back to hold it. It's a game changer.
Make it easier to hold. Yeah.
Yeah. Because then you're not like, it's like, just hold it on your finger. So this is so much fun. And let's wrap this up because I don't want to take up too much of your time, but
we're all busy too.
I know. So this was one of our questions. What's next for you?
I've been working on this.
Are you going to tease us?
Just a little bit, because it's still very, very much in its early stages. And I have been warned by other authors that, sometimes writing your second book will be like the hardest book of your career. Because you just, especially if you have some success with that first book, it just it's a different process. And I can see that it's not easy.
I think, the author of The Silent Patient, he said the same thing. I think I remember hearing something, because The Silent Patient was like, everywhere.
There's a great video. John Green, who wrote The Fault in Our Stars, has a great video where he talks about how it took him literally years to like get over the success of The Fault in Our Stars and actually be able to write again. And I think he's written many books since.
Super intimidating, I'm sure. Just a lot of pressure.
I am no John Green, and this is no Fault in Our Stars. But I like, I could see that. It's nice to know to watch out for it. But yeah, I am working on it. I'm hoping that over the summer I'll have a little time to carve away from doing all the promo and actually work on it a little bit. It's not a sequel or anything like that, but it has some of the same elements. There's some unexpected characters that maybe are not quite human.
Okay.
That's my teaser.
Ooh, okay. I like it. Well, where can everybody find you? So you have a website, I'm assuming.
Yeah, my website, which, oh my gosh, I need to update. And I feel like my editor's going to yell at me to update it.
As long as there's a buy link for the book, you're probably fine.
Absolutely is.
Okay.
It's just shelbyvanpelt.com. I'm on Instagram. It's probably my most used social media, Shelby Van Pelt Writes, which I didn't even have a writer Instagram until, I was coming out with this book, and I've had so much fun with it. I have Twitter too. That's just Shelby Van Pelt.
Oh, nice.
But Instagram is so much more fun than Twitter for me. It's just such a great community of readers and other writers. And so I'm often on there posting random photos of my cats or things or whatever.
That's so fun. Well, this was so great. I appreciate you just getting on this Zoom with me, and I'm excited for the Megan's Book Club people to watch it, because they have been dying to talk about your book, and I know that they will thoroughly enjoy this interview with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to your readers for the wonderful questions. And yeah, I guess I'll see all of you on Instagram.
I know we will. Yes, follow Shelby, and we are we won't put pressure on it, but we're very excited to see you continue in your writing and just all of it. It's just so exciting. And congrats on New York Times. That is so huge.
Thank you so much.
It's just so, so amazing. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching.